I'm so happy and grateful to have you here. I'm excited to introduce our truly inspiring guest, Ruby Valencia. Ruby is the founder and lead designer behind Blue Moon Studio, where she empowers ambitious, heart-centered women to step into their brand power and create a massive impact through elevated branding and website design. In this episode, we're exploring how she navigated life's challenges and took pauses for her business, all while staying true to her vision. Get ready for a really great conversation about the mindset shifts that come with taking a pause for your business and how they can still fuel lasting success. Let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Small Biz Diaries. As you heard the wonderful introduction, I'm super excited to be here with Ruby. We're going to be talking all about building a business through life's pauses and the perseverance that goes around that. I'm really excited about this chapter theme in today's episode just because there's a natural flow of life that's happening around us while we're still trying to build our business and do all these things. And I think sometimes we can get caught up in those things a lot. So I'm going to give the opportunity for Ruby to introduce herself and share a little bit about where she wants to start us off on her journey.
Thank you for the introduction, and I'm excited to be here and for having me on. So, I am a brand and website designer. I offer custom brand and website for heart centered women and mostly work with health and wellness brands and help them with elevating their brand so that they can impact the people they're meant to impact. And so, that's a little bit about what I do. But I guess I'll get started within my journey. So I've always loved being a creative. And so this has come from me from childhood. But how I got started with Blue Moon Studios, it happened kind of like organically, not thinking that it would be this. It definitely started through a somewhat awakening period where I wanted to see what there was more beyond what I was doing. I used to work for the state here in California, and I was just binging on podcasts, and I was just so inspired by all the different stories I was listening to. Thought, what can I do to take my creativity and just tap into that and, maybe create something out of it? When I decided to continue this creativity journey, I started like doing lettering and really just tap back into the creativity because I was doing accounting before this. So I was
Very
just
different.
very, very different. So not creative at all. And every chance I did get within my job to tap into the creativity, I'd be the first one to volunteer or I would be volunteered. But I wanted to do something outside of that. And so I did begin with calligraphy and lettering and just being creative with that. And that kind of transpired into doing things digital. So I got an iPad and started doing it digitally. Then I started tapping into maybe creating some logos. And so that's kind of how it began. And I was lucky enough to have friends who trusted me to create their branding. And so as I learned more about that, I I was like, I can do something with this. And I officially launched my business during COVID. Surprisingly, right? No, I was actually pregnant with my now 4-year old, and we went into lockdown, and so I started working at home, and I took that opportunity to kind of work on my side biz before having my son. And so I did begin to build a little momentum, started connecting with people online, and and then my son was born in July. And during that time, I still had energy to be able to have my son and be able to come back into my business. I launched my website a week before having my son, and I put out like a special of, work with me and I have a discount for you, but we will start later on in either, I think I had said either August or September. I was like ready to go back in it right after I had my son. And that's what I did. launched and I got a client. And when in September actually came around is when I started working with this client. But I took advantage of my maternity leave to hopefully start to build something that I would be able to grow. And with that, of course, now I'm trying to grow my business and market myself on Instagram because that was the main platform I started using for marketing. And with my baby, trying to deal with or not deal with, but like understand this newborn and get to know my son. I had a 7-year gap. I also have an 11-year-old, now 11-year-old. At the time she was 7, but I had a 7-year-old gap from being a newborn mom, so it was something completely new again for me. And this time I was staying home with my son and not going back to work, and that was where the difference was. And I definitely um had to embrace the the flow of my life, as I like to call it. And I had to reframe how I was working instead of trying to do the whole 9 to 5 and working during those hours. I really had to take a step back and be like, I can't do that because that's when I am caring for my children. So I have to really reorganize my schedule to see how it's going to work. And so I did start working at nights, and I did also take client calls on the weekends. And that's how I was able to manage that first period of my time of actually running my business full time. And at first, I was going to have plans on going back to work, but things happened. We didn't have like a solid babysitter, and we didn't want to just leave my son at a daycare at such a young age. It was like 4 months, at 4 months, I believe it was. And so my partner and I just decided for me to go ahead and stay home and watch my son grow, be able to build my business, which was an amazing opportunity that I was given. So I was like, oh my God, everything is aligning. I think this is the right path. And so from there, I began working with also a coach within a group coaching program to be able to help grow my business. And I took opportunity of this amazing opportunity that life was giving me to be able to grow my business, and I started pouring into it. When my son was 10 months old, unexpected news did come to my life. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had to take an immediate pause in my business. I had to go into surgery for me to be able to have my a double mastectomy and recover from that. I was very lucky. I was at early stages, so I didn't have to do any other further treatment, which was great. But here I am building my business, have clients, and had to kind of put everything at a pause and hurry and rush to finish the projects I did have. And I'm building momentum. These are no longer clients that are being referred to me as friends of that I know. This is from the marketing that I had done on Instagram. They connected with me and they trusted me to be able to invest in my services to be able to build their brand and their websites. And so here I am. I have to tell them, okay, we either rush the project to end or pause the project until I come back. Luckily, working within this industry, within the health and wellness, and the amazing clients I had, they were so understanding, and they totally were okay with either pausing if we didn't get to finish, or if we were able to finish. They were really on top of what they needed to get to me to be able to finish the project. So I was very lucky to have clients that understood my situation, and two, were also understanding with me being a mom, always being able to like, hey, I have my son in the background. Is that okay to hop on a call? Sure, that's amazing. I'm okay with that. I also have kids. So I think I definitely attracted a really aligned clients that have been a very amazing, and in these pauses of my business of life that was forced to take. I paused and I didn't share much of my story with my audience at the time of what was going on. It was, I have to take a pause, and that was kind of pretty much it. I was still processing all of the emotions that comes with the diagnosis and what was going to happen, the recovery, and I just was like, okay, we're going to have to pause. And so that's what I did. I paused, I had my surgery and finished up projects in the middle of May. I had my surgery, I think it was like the 17th of May, which happened to be a Friday. And then
Like the
yeah. It's just yeah, I do. It was like it was in the middle of May because it was before Memorial Day weekend. I remember perfectly because of the family that came down to visit to check up. And so my client was it we were able to finish and launch one client's brand and website, and then the other client's branding. And from there, I just kind of took time away, stepped away from the platform, Instagram, and just kind of, took care of me, took care of my son. My son was 10 months at the time, and then my daughter was 8. So I really had to just kind of take a step back and away from business and, be able to make sure I'm okay. And so once I went through the recovery, I was ready to come back. I began to kind of show a little behind the scenes of what was happening with me, and then slowly started coming back. So during the period, I think it was like maybe a month and a half that I had to really take a break completely from social media and marketing my business. But when I did come back, I just, it's always scary coming back, not knowing how am I going to be perceived. But the followers that followed me and viewed my stories and my content, I guess like consistently, they were the ones that were like, oh, kind of asking, but were happy when I started kind of showing back up. You're really scared to come back. What are they going to say? Why, what do I do? Where do I start? Like now I'm starting from scratch. That's what I thought I was doing. I was starting from scratch, but no, I was just kind of building on top of what I already had built, and just continue to build from there. And so I came back, started sharing a little bit more behind the scenes. And then once I got even more comfortable, and so what I'd like to say is like build my muscle of coming and showing back up. And so I think that's what it is. Kind of like when you work out after a while, you can't just go back to what you were doing, months ago. You kind of have to slowly work back up to it until you get back to that routine you had. And I think it's the same thing with showing up on social media. And I kept telling myself that it's like you're just rebuilding that muscle again to show back up. You're, on stories and sharing your content. And you're going no one's going to really say, why are you showing back up? We don't want to see your content anymore. You know what I mean?
we build it up more than it actually is going to be. Oftentimes we're having all these thoughts that we're like putting on other people without even knowing that that's what's going to be something that's happening. But I think that that's what something that you said about coming back that I think resonates is the people who actually were consistent in following your stories or just had more um, like visibility into what was happening when you were actually posting consistently
Mhm.
were the ones that were like, oh, hey, you're back, like, or checking in on you. And I think that's a testament to treating social media as like a community versus just a marketing channel or
Yes.
just a way to get clients, right? It's I think that's thing because if you were to, take the context out of Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media you're thinking of, and you were stepping into like a community of, I don't know, your book club or something. If you go MIA, yes, people might ask like, "Oh, I wonder where she is," but they're not going to like judge you for it, or they're not,
Yes.
she's not coming. And if they are, that's weird. That's a topic on its own.
Yeah.
But it's a community, right? So they're
Yes.
just at the end of the day going to, once you're back, check in on you and see how things are going. But I just wanted to speak towards that because I think that that's a testament to treating that strategy if you are thinking of whether you're all going to take a break because of maternity leave later, or you have a break that you have gone through, just if you're putting yourself in the place of like, let me treat this as like a, hey, these are my people, this is my community, you know,
Mhm.
support me, then I feel like there's a softer landing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it's that reframe right there. These are humans behind the profiles.
Right.
Someone who likes your content is an actual human. It's not a robot that is actually interacting. And a lot of the time, we have people who are, I know I'm one of them. I can be like behind the scenes looking at someone's content and not really interacting, but knowing like, feeling really connected to them, but not ready to interact with them. But I know their lifestyle. And so when they do go MIA, you're kind of like, I wonder where they went because you're following along and it is a human behind that profile. And if I think we start seeing it like that, it's going to maybe put less pressure on us trying to show up for whether it's hundreds of followers you have or thousands of followers, and just show up for that community that has always been rooting for you from the beginning, because these people are interacting for the most part with you and they are invested in your life to a point where it's like making sure you're okay and wanting to see more behind the scenes sometimes and sharing like, how are you doing it or what's going on, like share. I think that's where the connection piece happens and where you begin to build the trust with your audience. We're online, yes. We are here to market and create, sales, but at the same time, it's like you can't create sales without creating connection. And usually the connection comes from that community that is behind you. And that connection is being made and they are then building that trust. So when they are ready to work with someone, that does whatever services you offer, they're going to look to you versus someone else who they're not invested in.
Mhm.
And I think, when we kind of move away from thinking of the profiles as robots, because I think a lot of the time we do think that. And I will say here, like, oh, maybe they're non-existent, but they're really humans. There's humans behind these profiles that we're not, sometimes we don't, like go on Zoom calls with them. And so we don't interact in that way, but they are there, just throughout these years, 4 years, 5 years of business, I have seen that community like just kind of like, oh my God, Ruby, you're doing amazing, cheering you on. Just every time I've come back from those breaks that I've had to take, and like fills my heart just knowing I have built this community that has my back and I can come back to and just build from there. And they're not going to judge. They're not going to say, we don't want to see your content anymore. Cause I think that's what we're like, they're not going to judge because you share a random piece of content after so many months of not showing up or weeks or whatever it is, the break that you're taking. They're not going to judge you for that. If anything, they're going to cheer you on for coming back or for sharing this amazing piece of content or just showing up on stories and not necessarily posting on your feed, but on stories. They're going to cheer you on because that's the community you begin to build on this platform like Instagram. So
Yeah. What kind of, yeah, because obviously your different pauses have been different every time in terms of why you
mhm.
were taking them, right? So what was going through your mind in terms of feeling the pressure to share why you took the pause, and or if you decided to share anything about why you took the pause, what kind of practice or reflection were you doing in terms of like what you were comfortable with in terms of sharing? um
So in the 4 years or 4 to 5 years that I've been in business, I have had to take, so it's three like long pauses for sure that were a month or more, because when I had my now 4-year-old, I really didn't take him as a pause. It came when the first pause was the diagnosis. And then with that one, I felt, because I wanted to share that this can happen to anyone. I was 31
mhm.
at that time. And so it's very young to be diagnosed with with breast cancer. Usually the diagnosis come when you're in your late 40s or 50s. And so I wanted to share that it can happen to anyone. So I have the majority of my community is women. And so that is why I kind of felt a little bit more to share, not the full story. I wasn't ready to share the full story, but I did want to share, hey, this happened to me and it's worth taking care of your body and taking care of you, because at the end of the day, the business isn't going to go anywhere if you're not okay.
Mhm.
And so that's where I felt that, I started to share a little bit of behind why that pause there. With the other two, I was in maternity leave. I had my now 2-year old. That was the second pause, which happened the year after I was with the diagnosis. And I kind of prepped my audience for that pause. And that pause wasn't a super long pause. It was what I needed to be able to feel good to come back
Right.
and start sharing again. And again, it was just building momentum on what I already had. And a lot of the times we feel like we're crashing to the ground when we do these pauses, but we're not. We're shift that mindset to, like, instead of you're starting from the ground, you're just building back up on what's already there. And
Mhm.
people are going to receive it great. Yeah, maybe the analytics isn't going to be the greatest when you start hopping on, but eventually you're going to get back to that routine you once had. And that's what I learned in that second pause. And then with my third pause, it was again maternity leave. However, this maternity leave, so this was my daughter this last time, which was last year, a year ago actually. It was a year ago.
I feel like we need to do a whole nother episode of prepping for maternity leave with you
Oh my
because
goodness.
I,
Yeah.
I think that that would be a separate topic. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've so many maternity leaves out here. But with that specific maternity leave, I did prep again. I prepped my audience. However, I was lying like with my son, my third son, my now 2-year old. I felt great to go back into it 2 months after I had my son. But with her last year, so I prepped for that and I had clients lined up after the month of end of November for December. So she was born at the end of September. And so I was giving myself a month and a half, which I felt that I was going to do be great. It was going to be perfect and I was going to be able to come back. And so that's what I had. I had clients lined up and it was just much different. It was the longest period that I've taken, because the other times I've taken 2 months off with my surgery and with my son's maternity leave. This one, I took 7 months off.
Wow.
And yeah, it was long. Behind the scenes, I talked to the clients I had lined up for. And then at one point, I did start working with them, but I wasn't showing up on social media. But that was because every maternity or every pregnancy is different and postpartum is different. Now I know that it's different for every postpartum phase that you have. And this one hit me like really hard, not because my baby was hard, not because I had I'm a mom of four, but for some reason it's like the hormones and just there was just so many things. I didn't feel like myself and I wasn't ready to come back on social media. And so I didn't even pick up the phone to look at social media. I was off of it completely. Maybe I would one day scroll, but it was just like I was not, 100% to come back. And so um, I just didn't even touch the platform. I didn't show up. I didn't post. I didn't go on stories. But I know I know my audience knew I was going to be like I was probably on maternity leave. And with the community that I did connect with, there were messages sent from them. And when I did feel good to respond, I did. but I wasn't on the platform marketing my services at all. And then at this point, I've already built an email list. So I've had email lists and I've been sending newsletters. So with that, I did pause also. So all the marketing did pause completely. And I had to make sure I took care of me and I was ready to come back into my business and start building from there. And clients were amazing. They were understanding. Again, I have been very lucky to have amazing clients who are so understanding with these phases in my life and these pauses that I've taken. And so I was able to work with them to be able to push our start date further and start into what is now like 2024. And so when I was finally ready, I finished those projects off before I could start back up. And I think I made the decision in April that I was ready. And in May is when I began to start showing up. Before I was showing up 3 times a week, like posting 2 to 3 times a week, posting and on stories every single day. So I just came back slow. But again, I just built on what I already had. I've had already made connections. I've already made community with other communities where that I was a part of that I just took a break from. And I just kind of tapped back into that community, get that support that I needed, and just slowly started getting back into it. And it worked. I was able to build on the momentum I thought I had lost. And I booked a client, I booked another client and another client. So it's all to say, like, even though these pauses happen in life, I think when again, it goes back to that community you've built, that community that you're building on social media, on Instagram, or whatever platform you're building the community in, they're going to be there for you when you come back and you're going to see it. And it's been amazing, the welcome that I've had, and just them being there. And I see the faces that I like when I see go on stories, the likes and all. It's the same community from before I went on maternity leave and took this 7-month break. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah, definitely building on top of that.
Yeah, no, I like when you were mentioning the fact that it's not starting from a clean slate every single time.
Mhm.
It's building off of what you had before. It's the perfect way to reframe it, because it's almost as if, I mean, with a small business, with being an entrepreneur, you're building brick by brick by brick everything that you're doing, and you're not just like, knocking down the structure and like knocking down all the brick. You're saying, hey, let me pause this part that I'm building or this section that I'm building and come back to it when I'm ready, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we get so caught up in the, you know, outside variables of just worrying about things, having the fear and doubts of who you are and the communities you've built and the business structure you already have, that you kind of spiral backwards when you're just like, no, there's so much momentum that you can still work off of because you
Yeah.
have previously built something. Uh, so I love that reframe, or like that way to shift your mindset within that space, because life happens,
Yes.
whether it's outside of just, building a family, to your health, to wellness, to travel. There's so many other factors
Yeah.
that come into play, and it's a part of life, right? Like, we're not going to just like stop everything and say, hey, I know I need to work on this. So I like that reframe.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's it's scary. I think, like, I did come back. I'm like, am I going to have the same momentum? But it allowed me to see, yes, that momentum you built last year is the same thing that happened all the other times you had to take a pause. You can continue and building upon that because you've laid the foundation already. You know what your offers are. You know who you're speaking to. You know who your audience is. And it's just, again, building on top of that. You don't have to come back full force. You can take it day by day, slowly, until you get into that and start rebuilding that muscle again. but
Mhm.
you have already laid that foundation, and all you have to do is come back and continue to build upon that. And the momentum will follow as you continue building that routine once again. And that's what I've learned. It's pauses, I've learned to embrace them as, they're a part of life. It happens to all of us. Sometimes some people take, it's a weekend, some people take a week. And like me, I took 7 months of this long break that I needed for myself. And I was able to then come back when I was ready and just build upon that and take it day by day until I was able to rebuild that momentum and continue that momentum down the road. So, with that, I'm like, I've built the momentum. And again, like now I'm going into another phase of taking a pause again. This one is probably going to be either 6 to 8 weeks, but I'm hoping to share a little bit more behind the scenes in this particular break that I'm taking that's coming up. I will be having to go into reconstruction surgery now. And it's been a pause since my mastectomy. The plan was reconstruction right after, but I got pregnant twice. So that has been on
Oh, yeah.
hold. And so now finally I'm waiting for my surgeon to schedule me, but that's looking like the end of this year. And so now with that in mind, I know I can continue right now with the momentum that I have, let my audience know things are going to be slowing down for this time frame because X, Y, and Z, like in this case, my reconstruction. And it's okay, but my plan is to take the time for the like the first few 4 weeks probably healing, but then the 6 to 8 weeks that are after, I think will be when I can start coming back and showing up. That's my plan. But then again, it's like I already have built something. I saw it with the 7 months of not showing up, of how that momentum has built to today. And I'm confident in being able to take this break that I need and come back and just start building from it again. And I think all those experiences has shown me there is nothing wrong with taking these breaks that people need, whether it's for your health, for maternity leave, for just your mental health, to be off of social media. You still have the platform. You can still come back and you can still tap into your community for support. Because if you are on social media and you do consider your audience as human beings, as community, then you see that support from them already, then you know they're going to be there when you do come back. They're not going to fall off. They're going to continue to support you. So,
Yeah. Thank you for
yeah.
sharing. Just obviously with your experience before with all the pauses, but also most recently and upcoming
Hmm.
that you know and you're mindful of. I think that it's important to note here too. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There's no rule book for being a small business owner, right? There's no guidelines you have to follow. It's something that is very unique to you and your experience and outside variables, family, friends, health. There's so many components of it. So
Hmm.
if one person's taking, a month for their maternity leave, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to take a month for your maternity leave.
Exactly.
If
Yes.
for any of those circumstances, you have to find something that works for you. It's not something that you have to compare your journey or someone else's success with their pause to
Yes.
then say, okay, well, if they're that 6 to 8 weeks worked for them to feel like we're rejuvenated or refreshed, whatever, then that's the amount of time I have to take.
Hmm.
Everybody, going back to the human component, everybody's so different and uniquely themselves. So making sure you're taking that consideration for yourself is so important to be able to take those breaks and feel your flow, your own flow of what's happening
Yes.
in life and
Yes.
embracing that, like you said, which
Mhm.
is great. If we're looking at things that come up in our life as an inconvenience and things that will make it, feel even harder to come back. And if we're trying to, look at it from a negative lens, and of course we're going to spiral into more negative thoughts and all of this stuff. So embracing the change is something that is should be on a shirt slash if it's not already.
Yes.
But yes.
I know I've learned to like just kind of tell myself like everyone's on their own journey.
Mhm.
No path is the same because I do there are sometimes I go into like the comparison to other designers who began when I began, seeing their growth. But then I've remind myself is like we're all on our own path and well me personally embrace this journey. Enjoy the small wins and you know it's hard when you are spiraling and having the negative thoughts come up, and it is hard when that is happening. But if you kind of pull back and sit and just kind of reframe and look at all the little wins you've had in all of the time that you've been in business, or anything, any little win you can pull, I think will help you begin shifting that mindset and reframing like to, you're on your own journey and it's going to look different for everyone. And that's just the part of business. Like you said, one business is not going to look the same like the other. One maternity leave is not going to look like the same as another person. We all have to embrace our own and go with the flow of our own life and not look outwards and just look inwards and see how at the end of the day we build our business. For at least me, I build my business to be able to revolve around my family and not me revolve around my business.
Right.
It's meant to work alongside with me and my family and not necessarily take over my life. So, I mean, now with the pause that is coming any time now, really, I'm just waiting for the call for them to schedule the date, but I'm I'm embracing that it's part of my journey. It's part of something that I have to go through that's only going to help me grow. And with that, I'm prepping to allow my audience know this is coming, and now take advantage now of my email marketing to be able to also share that there. And my plan is of course sharing a little bit behind the scenes of what's going on. I do want to start taking my audience on this journey. I think with my maternity leave I did kind of go completely like blank, and I don't want to do that once again, not because I'm scared or because of the fear of coming back from another yet pause, but because me personally, I'm ready to share this part of my journey alongside my community. Just like they've been there for me, I want to be able to share that with them. And that's what I have planned for this new upcoming pause that I will be taking, where prepping them. Then once I'm ready, kind of sharing behind the scenes throughout, not necessarily showing up like I currently show up, but definitely having some glimpse of the process so they can kind of see what is happening behind the scenes. And it's the community. Like a lot of the time when we're healing, sometimes we do need to hear community there. That's what I want. I know I'm going to need my community, and I love having the community to be able to be rooting for you, because they will send you messages, well-being and rooting for you. I've received so many of those, and it just fills my heart, and I know that's something I will need, and that's why I want to be able to bring them in on this new pause that I'm going to be going into in this journey.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. Now, knowing the lessons you learned from your previous pauses to now applying them, you know,
Hmm.
in practice now with what you have upcoming going on. Outside, obviously, of those ebbs and flows of your business and in how it's coincided with things happening in your life, what would you say is something that you're struggling with right now in your business? Obviously, we talked about how Small Biz Diaries, we like to peel back the layers of
Hmm.
things that are happening behind the scenes. So, is there something that you're looking to trying to reframe your mindset on, or something that you're working on right now that you'd love to share?
So, one thing I have been kind of going through at the moment, it's something that comes up every time, but it's just kind of a matter of reframing. I'm a big journaler. I have been journaling since I've had my 4-year-old. So 4 years now, and it has helped me a ton with being able to reframe all of these thoughts. And the one reframe is, again, the showing up on social media, but not showing up in the way that you may think, like, oh, just showing up my face. Not that, but having that structure and reframing that structure. So, like, a lot of content that we see is working from 9 or 8 to 5. And so it's daytime. But me, in the place I am within my life, I work not 9 to 5. I work maybe from 6 to 7. And then I take a break, get my kids ready in the morning, feed them breakfast, and then maybe work from 10 to 11. And so it's the reframe of having to share content that is kind of not perfect, and also sharing behind the scenes of after hours when everybody's sleeping. It's my working hours, and embracing that. I don't see a lot of it. I see a lot of people share content that is during the day, but my content specifically, if I really want to share behind the scenes, it's all going to be at night, because that is when I'm able to work with,
Mm,
given the time of how, with my kids, I'm with them during the day. I have help from my parents here and there, but not every day does it look the same. So I think it's that reframing on how to show up and start and not, like, how a lot of us, when we start our business, it's like, oh, we have to work from 9 to 5. It's that reframe again. Like,
mm,
no, you get to work when is best for you and your lifestyle. And it doesn't have to be from 9 to 5. It can be from 8, you know, to 10 or 12, or, or in the morning, really early in the morning, and not necessarily from 9 to 5. 9 to 5 is just family time. And then after that is when you get back to work. And so right now I've been struggling with showing up because of how I'm going to share that type piece of content. It's me embracing the moment in my life right now that I'm going through, and
mm,
sharing that with others, because I know there's other moms that are following me that are doing the same thing, where it's not necessarily from 9 to 5 of working. It is after hours when the kids are down and they're asleep and it's pitch black, or you're working in an office or wherever. It's not always during the day, and it's now embracing the moment in my life that I am in, is what I'm kind of have been struggling with, and just embracing that. And so it's reframing that, it's, again, I built the business to work around my family, not the business, me work around my family, and my life work around my business. So it's
yeah,
that reframe that I've been kind of working through right now. So
yeah.
yeah.
No, I think that's gonna resonate with a lot of people just because it's true. I think oftentimes, no matter if you're a small business owner or you're running, a Fortune 500 company, there's just people want to put you into a box of what you should be doing on
Yeah.
social media, or what you should be sharing, or what should be happening. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's a common theme here in terms of just like, in not only in when that situation does arise, embracing and saying, okay, well, yes, this is happening, but what feels right to me in this situation? Is it, sharing more in this scenario behind the scenes later at night, or finding something that works for me within this space that I can still show up and feel as though I'm showing up for myself and for my community in a way
Hmm.
that works. And I think it's, again, often getting caught back into the cycle of like having to do things a specific way, but you've learned through the perseverance of, taking the pauses, that everything
Hmm.
will work out for you, and people in your community will still be there for you at the end of the day,
Yes.
those that want to stick by you.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah, it's just kind of coming back to what I've already learned, and just sharing and posting because I know we're all unique. And some people are morning people and some people are night owls. And I happen to be a night owl. And I think it's owning that and sharing that. I know I will get a lot of my community agreeing with, oh my God, that's me too. I know it will happen. But it's just a matter of embracing it now and removing that box and just kind of allowing myself to be me and showcasing how I work because I know it will resonate with others. And so that's what I've been kind of
Yeah, navigating.
back and forth. Yeah.
No, I mean, I can't thank you enough. I think you're such a good example of how, as a small business owner, there's so many outside things going on
Mhm.
that people aren't really, they don't really know or aren't really noticing. And that's okay. But there are things that will impact, like, how you can show up for your business. And you have to decide whether or not you need to take a step back to be able to
Mhm.
show up even better.
Yeah.
And I think all of those things, like your sharing your journey in the context of what was happening in your life at the time as well, is the reality, right? It's just not a lot of people are talking about what's happening outside of their
Yeah.
day-to-day life,
Mm.
outside of being a small business owner. Um,
Yeah.
but it is the reality of the situation with anyone and everyone. It's just everybody's position looks very different. So I just want to thank you, because I think it's just not only you sharing what's going on in your business, but you sharing what's been going on in your day to day and your journey through
Thank you.
all the things outside of your work and being a web and brand designer. And so I'm going to make sure I share everything to have people connect with you
Thank
outside of
you.
this, so that way Instagram, they can see your beautiful website and see everything that you have to offer, so that way they're able to support you and you're able to grow the amazing community you already are growing. But last question I want to ask, to leave this off with, is, do you have any advice for anybody that is wanting to start their own business and or nervous about factors going on in their life, that they're like, well, maybe it's not going to work out the way I want it to, like, kind of taking us back to where you were when you were starting this journey, what advice would you give someone that maybe is going through something similar?
The advice I would give is don't try to run, baby steps. Like a perfect example, my daughter started walking a few weeks ago. But a lot of the times we want to run, and I noticed her, she would want to run. But once she started taking the small steps, that's when she started going and going and going. And I think that can be the same for anyone and everyone building whatever they are. It's in the steps, in the small steps that you are taking to begin, whether it's starting your business and wanting to grow something that you've never tapped into. Take the baby steps that you need to take that action, and do go on your own journey and enjoy the journey you are on, your journey of growth, and take it one step at a time. I think that's the best advice I can give for someone starting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. And I will attest to the fact that Ruby, on for your Instagram account, Blue Moon Studios, you do these amazing, like, affirmations, and
Mhm.
I genuinely, like, intentionally read them, and it, like, helps me so much just to be like, does this apply to, my day or my life today? Everything that you've spoken about just speaks towards the fact that, like, you're applying not only you and your essence and everything that you've learned from being a small business owner, but from you yourself as Ruby. So
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for
Thank
all of
you.
that.
Thank
And
you.
I think it's amazing advice. And I just appreciated you being here. So thanks again.
Thank you for having me. It was such a great chat, and I hope this resonates with someone that needs to hear it. So, thank you.